And I'm joined now by ESPN's Doug Glanville. And Doug, the big news, shocking news for a lot of people, whether they're here in Arizona or nationally across baseball, Corbin Burnes inks a deal with the Diamondbacks, 6 years, $210 million. When that came down the pipeline, what was your initial reaction to it?
Oh, I was definitely in the wow mode right there because, Corbin Burnes very sought after by pretty much any team that can afford him. And the Diamondbacks are a team that you weren't sure going to be on his radar. He had so many options. But hey, the Diamondbacks got to the World Series not long ago, and they seem to be a team on the upside. So he said, hey, this is the opportunity he was looking for. So that's exciting because you see the NL West getting very interesting.
Yeah, the Dodgers still making tons of moves coming off the World Series. The Padres look like a team that maybe should have been the only team that could have beat the Dodgers last year, potentially. That's how good they are and their retooling as well. Coming from your perspective, I don't know if we see this enough though with players. So we talk about, contract offers, maybe more teams were offering more years, more per year, whatever the number is. But the fact that it was well known early on, Corbin decided to stay because his family was here. He just had twins, he had connections here. What does that say that more and more players are slowly starting to pick destinations, not just based on money and, fit, but their lifestyle as well?
It's certainly always a factor to a player, but when you're in the stratosphere of an elite pitcher or just elite anything in this game, you're going to have great choices. I mean, well, okay, 5 years, 190 versus 6 years, I mean, it's all great money, and you certainly want to make sure you're within the marketplace, but at the same time, you do have other priorities. You do recognize that when you play long enough, you finally have control. You have some say in your future, where you could be, who you want to play for, and a chance to win. So you want to leverage that as much as possible. Your career is way too short to kind of think of it any other way. You try to make your money, of course, but when you're Corbin Burnes and you're an all-star, you're just an elite pitcher. You know that someone like him has a lot of choices. So he was able to narrow it down and still get much of what you want as any free agent. And that's the mark of someone that's in the best place you can be in your career.
When you look at the Diamondbacks now, and they're a team newer to the national spotlight after about 20 years of just being in the basement and, having a couple ups, but a lot of downs. Now they're a team with arguably the best rotation in baseball. You've got teams like the Dodgers trying to defend, the Mets, obviously in the NL, doing their thing. The Phillies have had a great roster. Where do you see this Diamondbacks team fitting in? I know there's still plenty of moves that they can make, but where do you see them fitting in?
Well, what a rotation. And they're pitching from the standpoint of how they performed a couple of years ago in their World Series run, shows the potential and the capability. The challenge that they have to face is last year, a lot of struggles on the pitching side, whether health, whether, Jordan Montgomery not being able to, execute like they'd hoped. Thinking about their bullpen, which was, kind of a key asset in how they were able to get to the World Series. So they're going to need that sort of turnaround or get back to equilibrium from the rest of the staff, particularly the bullpen, because their offense was phenomenal last season. They just destroyed teams. And when they got hot, it was just runs, power, on base, just tons of pressure. That's what really brought them back from the brink last year. They just got their offense working. So their pitching was not as bad as it appeared last year. You add Burnes, and then you get back to some normal, you have a great shot. And the reality is they have to get, because the Dodgers are just completely out of control right now. So, and the fact that Otani might be on the mound again or whatever, and then all the guys that might get healthy to add to what they added in this rotation. So the Diamondbacks know to compete, they have to pitch, they have to get their defense, which, outs above average, great team. They absolutely are on the right trajectory there. So it is, to me, it comes down to their bullpen, because Corbin Burnes has to hand the ball off to someone. I mean, he's a great pitcher who can go deep, but nobody's going nine these days. So you got to have someone to close it out.
Right, and that's where we get into the moves they can make. Doesn't sound like Mike Hazen is done. Speaking of Mike Hazen,
Yeah.
what does it say about him to realize he understands the landscape? At least it appears that way on the outside. Last year having the top offense in baseball, but missing the playoffs by one game. Realizing that just having a top offense doesn't win World Series. The last team to do it was the 2018 Red Sox. That was just a ridiculous offense and a ridiculous staff in general. But for him to realize the pitching, even getting some health back, was a priority. What does that mean?
Well, it certainly means that Hazen is in touch and in tune. When you talk about Torey Lovello, who's just one of the great managers of the game, people person, connector, bridge builder, networker. This is someone that has such a great relationship with Hazen, so that it's really a tandem. That's the way the teams are going to be able to consistently be in the picture. And then certainly when you have payroll moves you can make and get a Burnes, then you're in the play, you're on the playing field more than that. So yeah, so Hazen is a guy that is personal, he's got his intensity, but he knows his X's and O's. And when you have that combination with the charisma of Torey Lovello, who will sit down in front of a player and you'll be like, oh, I got to run through a wall for this guy. That's just what I got to do. So Corbin Burnes had a chance to talk to him. That that's only a bonus for Arizona baseball because of what Torey means to the game and just how he's such a charismatic figure. So they have a good thing going there, and they got a lot of depth even in the front office, special assistants, people who've had tremendous experience in running the game. Mike Hazen, he's not afraid to bring people around that have that experience. It's not a threat to him. He sees it as an asset. And because of that, now they're starting to get the players on the field who, by the way, have commitments longer term. So they have some vision with some of these younger players as well, Corbin, Carroll, and so on. So it's an exciting team.
Last thing before I get you out of here too, I really appreciate your insight. Nationally, I'm seeing a lot of discussion this offseason before things started picking up, fans from different markets. Why is it just the Dodgers and the Yankees spending money? And so the discourse comes, well, if they're spending money, what's stopping other teams from spending money? To see a team like Arizona, that it is a giant market, but it does feel smaller market in the terms of just where baseball is in general. What does it say when a team like that, who kind of has a history of spending like this at random times, makes a statement like that and signs Corbin Burnes in the situation? What does that tell other teams, or where do you sit on that discourse of, why are some teams spending more than others, and where that goes?
Well, from the Diamondback standpoint, they're a player this year. They want to be a player. They're making the commitment. You don't go sign Corbin Burnes and say, well, let's just finish in third place. They're trying to win this. And look, they knocked the Dodgers off a couple of years ago, soundly. So, you get the right twist and the right lineup and the right matchups, and all of a sudden it's a different game. The Dodgers had to limp their way through San Diego. So there's no like cruising through. I don't care what you have on the field. And the Diamondbacks know that you could be that one pitcher away. And it says that they're making the moves because they recognize the window that they're in. Maybe the Dodgers have unlimited windows. They have a lot of windows. They have a skyscraper of windows. That's fun. But in any given year, you're going up against some teams that are all in, and you gotta beat them. And the Diamondbacks are in that mode. And so from the standpoint of baseball overall, it's great to have other teams be in the mix. It's great to see other teams that when they can spend, they do spend, and they're able to, kind of outmaneuver in the free agent market and also do it with development and trades. You need it all. And some teams can buy a lot of teams, but in the end, you still have to execute on the field. And so that's the equation that has an upside for the game when teams and all these teams have a shot. And now you look at the Padres, you look at the Diamondbacks, you look at the Dodgers. I don't count the Giants out. They can pitch. All of a sudden, you have a competitive division, and that's really good for baseball overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's always my counter argument. When's the last time we had a repeat champion in baseball? It's been a long time. This is the sport that has the most parity, whether, the Dodgers are consistently having the highest payroll, or when the Yankees were and not winning World Series or getting the World Series. So still got to play it out. It's still a long season, but making those moves when you have that window, like you said, like Arizona's doing, is definitely important. Well, Doug, I appreciate the time and the insight as always. Thank you so much. Hope you're enjoying the new year.
All right, Jordan. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.